Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into another chilling case. Before we get started, please support the channel by hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications. He was a successful and well-respected man who had always lived a structured life until she came along. She was mysterious and half his age, with a past that carried a sense of danger. What began as a whirlwind romance soon spiraled into a series of unsettling events, eventually leading to a tragic end. No one could have predicted that their glamorous dates and lavish gifts would culminate in a shocking crime, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. It all started when Mike New, a 60-year-old successful businessman from Pennsylvania, thought he had found a new chapter of happiness with Jennifer Morris, a young and vibrant single mom. Their relationship moved fast. Just a few months after meeting, Mike whisked Jennifer away on a luxurious trip to the Caribbean. Their romance seemed straight out of a movie, filled with jet ski rides, fancy dinners, and expensive gifts. To those around him, Mike appeared to be a completely different person, almost like he was living a dream, but little did anyone know, darker days were ahead. 3 years into their relationship, Mike even got a tattoo in 2015 honoring Jennifer, something he had never done before. That same year, he asked Jennifer to move in with him, and she accepted. They even set up a room specifically for her child. Everything seemed ideal. Mike took care of her every need and created a comfortable life for her and her kid, but long before Mike met Jennifer, his life was much quieter and more predictable. He was born in Pennsylvania in 1953 and grew up in a well-respected family. After high school and college, he married his high school sweetheart, and they lived in a nice house by the beach together. They raised their kids and lived the typical middle-class life. But after a few years, the spark faded and the couple decided to divorce. Despite the split, Mike and his ex-wife remained on good terms, and their kids spent a lot of time with both parents. After the divorce, Mike moved to a small town in Bucks County, starting a new chapter on his own. He threw himself into his work and became a successful pharmaceutical sales rep. His business thrived, and the house he bought by the river became his pride and joy. He spent his days riding jet skis, collecting art, and enjoying life. But all that calm came to an end in 2012 when Jennifer entered his life. Their relationship seemed passionate from the outside, but many suspected her interest in Mike was more about his money. But Mike appeared to be totally oblivious to his emotions, and nothing could stop him. The actual incident occurred on August 8, 2017, in the evening. When Mike didn't check in all day, which was completely out of character for him, his co-workers became concerned and decided to stop by his house to check on him. When they arrived, they discovered Mike's car parked in the garage, but the house was quiet and locked up. The women knocked on the door, but no one answered, and their uneasiness increased when they saw that the front door was actually unlocked. They entered the house and felt as though it was deserted. No one returned their calls, so they continued to explore the living room, which was horrifying. At first glance, Mike appeared to have just fallen asleep while seated in a chair facing away from them, but as they approached, they saw that he was indeed dead, since his face and chest were covered in blood and his head was motionlessly tilted back. When the crime scene detectives arrived, they promptly ruled out a heart attack, since one of the women was so scared that she was unable to explain what had happened. The other woman took the phone and informed them that they had located Mike's body. Although Mike had a bullet wound between his eyes, indicating that he had been shot at close range, there was no gun nearby, so it was impossible that he had committed suicide. The house was not destroyed, and there were no signs of a struggle, which suggested that Mike had not anticipated the attack. However, the most bizarre aspect was that, despite the fact that his watch and pockets were empty, more valuable items, such as his art collection, remained undamaged. This led the police to believe that the robbery had been staged, and as they pieced together the chronology of events, it became evident that Mike's relationship with Jennifer was a major factor in his tragic destiny. Mike had 2 guns, but one of them was missing. It turned out that Mike had been shot with his own gun, which he kept for self-defense. The killer obviously knew where the gun was kept and how to enter and exit the house covertly, which made the police suspect that Mike's close friend or relative was the culprit. Jennifer Morris entered the scene. Her past was not without its gloomy times. She was raised in a difficult household, left home early, and had to work as a mechanic to make ends meet. Her life was defined by her love of speed and excitement, which led to reckless exploits and late-night street races. Even though she became a mother at the age of 20, her life continued to move forward despite the fact that her child's biological father abandoned them early. Mike and Jennifer met in 2012 when she was 28 years old, and their romance began with lavish gifts, trips, and lots of attention. Mike seemed to be completely enamored with Jennifer, but as their relationship grew, tension began to build. Neighbors recalled hearing arguments between the two in the months before the tragedy, but they continued to live together even as things worsened when Mike was discovered dead. As the police gathered GED information, they discovered that Jennifer had a troubled past, particularly with her mother. She frequently talked about her difficult childhood, blaming men who had abused her and a mother who didn't believe her. As the investigation progressed, more and more evidence suggested that Mike had trusted his killer, whoever it was, knew the house well and had no trouble getting in without breaking anything, including Jennifer, who had been his lover. Pennsylvania in 2012, a sweltering night at a men's club with a lively audience changed the course of both Mike New and Jennifer Morris' lives. Jennifer, a young and attractive dancer, had recently begun working at the club to make ends meet. She was a mechanic by trade, a single mother, and in serious financial trouble with a $1,200 L bill hanging over her like a dark cloud. It was in this state that she met 59-year-old Mike, a regular at the club, and their conversation quickly escalated when Mike offered to help her. Jennifer agreed to go on a date if Mike paid off her bill, and that was the beginning of their whirlwind romance. What began as a simple deal quickly turned into something more serious as Mike showered his young lover with expensive gifts, jewelry, a motorcycle, a car, and everything to demonstrate her place in his life. They traveled together, ate at the most expensive restaurants, and visited the hottest nightclubs. Mike didn't seem to mind that Jennifer began referring to him as her sugar daddy, and her life, which had previously been difficult, now appeared simple and cozy. In 2015, Mike, a respected businessman who was successful in the pharmaceutical industry and accustomed to reaching his goals, found in her what he had been missing: youth, passion, and a wild kind of energy. She, on the other hand, was searching for a way out of her difficult life and found security in his wealth and stability. Took a serious turn when Jennifer and Mike moved in together. Although they were content on the surface, their whirlwind relationship, complete with rich presents and costly trips, left others jealous, and none realized the underlying issue. Beneath the surface, neighbors remembered that, in the months leading up to Mike's death, their relationship had deteriorated. They had a lot of arguments, and one of them allegedly ended with Jennifer leaving the house. Nevertheless, she returned, and they continued living together. On August 8, 2017, everything changed when he was discovered dead in his house. The police started looking into it, and soon after Mike's death, they focused on Jennifer. She abruptly vanished and no one had seen her for days, which sparked suspicions. Mike's children, after learning of their father's passing, Patrick and his sister traveled from various towns to learn the truth. Since he believed that Jennifer was dangerous and materialistic, Patrick in particular had long opposed his father's relationship with her. In the last few years, everyone around Mike had noticed that Jennifer was abusing drugs and manipulating him. Many thought she was only using him for her own gain, which seriously harmed Mike's relationships with his loved ones. Patrick recalled how Mike refused to attend his wedding in 2016 because Patrick didn't want Jennifer there. When Mike made Jennifer his heir and the beneficiary of life insurance policies worth $500,000, it only served to further cement the notion that she was pursuing his money, and by 2017, everything had tragically ended. This was the direct cause of the ongoing disputes with Patrick. Mike started to show up less frequently, and Jennifer started to distance herself from him. Their relationship was also failing. Given that Mike had lately announced to the public that he intended to end their relationship and call off their wedding, Ives was certain that money might have been the driving force behind her actions. Jennifer Morris had been drifting away from Mike, and by 2017, their relationship had taken a serious turn for the worse. She would disappear for whole nights and return early in the morning, giving no explanation, acting as though she didn't care how it affected their life together. Mike noticed that Jennifer was getting colder, and as their relationship cooled, she appeared to be going deeper and deeper into a dark place. In the end, her drug addiction took over, and it was the beginning of the end for her. She had been arrested a few times for drug possession, and once a year prior to the tragic events, she had even struck a cyclist with her car. Mike never abandoned Jennifer. In addition to paying her fines and legal bills, he also contributed $4,000 a month to her ongoing cases. Even though his family, including his children, didn't share his optimism, Mike wanted to help Jennifer. According to them, he was planning to end their relationship permanently, calling off the wedding, which would mean that she would lose everything she had, including his house, his financial support, and the privileges she had grown accustomed to with Patrick and Katie. Mike's kids believed that Jennifer's fear of losing access to Mike's wealth and chances drove her to conduct the crime because she was unable to control her emotions when she realized she was about to lose everything. Mike was shot in the face at point-blank range, and the bullet split in two, with one piece striking his brain, causing instant death. He passed away 48 hours before his co-workers discovered him. The police searched for Jennifer since they knew she was on probation for the accident and assumed she would show up to check in at the police station 4 days after the incident. However, she did not know what was waiting for her when she arrived. The detectives noticed something strange. The news about the crime had spread immediately after it happened, but Jennifer waited a few days before coming to the police when they scheduled a meeting with her for the following day to ask more questions about Mike. Jennifer pretended nothing had happened when she came to pay her legal fees and claimed she was shocked to hear about Mike's death, which she claimed she had learned about on the news. Jennifer abruptly disappeared, which only increased suspicion. It appeared as though she was trying to flee or to come up with an alibi, but she couldn't just disappear because she still had to check in with the police on a regular basis. In the meantime, the officers continued to gather evidence and speak with members of Mike's circle to build a case against her. During the investigation, some concerning information surfaced, including the revelation from a friend of Mike that the businessman had confided in him about fearing for his life just before he passed away. Mike had learned that Jennifer was seeing someone else, a man known in the criminal community as Ruthless. Mike knew becoming more aware of the danger his relationship was spiraling into tried to find a way out of the situation. Just days before his death, Mike uncovered the identity of Jennifer's new man. Someone everyone knew as Ruthless's real name was Charles Kua, and he had a bad reputation in the criminal world. He had faced the law many times and was involved in serious crimes including drug trafficking. Not long after being released from prison, Charles entered Jennifer's life and she quickly moved in with him. However, her belongings were still at Mike's house, adding tension to their already strained relationship. Mike had warned Jennifer several times that if she didn't come to get her things, he would put them in storage, but he was careful not to provoke Charles, knowing he didn't stand a chance against someone with such a dangerous past. Jennifer and Charles weren't even trying to. hide their relationship, they announced their engagement on social media, which only made Mike more upset. The police could see the situation escalating. They started suspecting that Charles might have been the mastermind in the murder of Mike. One theory was that when Jennifer failed to show up for her probation check-in, the police decided to arrest her for violating her probation. This allowed investigators to look further into Jennifer's potential involvement in the crime. While in custody, one of her cellmates came forward and claimed that Jennifer had confessed to the crime during questioning. Jennifer refused to answer any questions and immediately hired a lawyer. Another theory was that it was a cold-blooded crime with robbery as the motive, with Mike serving as an impediment that needed to be removed. Investigators chose to concentrate on after obtaining an order to access Jennifer and Mike's communications. The police discovered that Mike had been frightened. In one text, he told Jennifer that anyone who entered his home would receive what they deserved. It appeared to be a clear threat. A last-ditch effort to save his life. The night before the event, at 9:45 p.m., Jennifer's phone was tracked close to Mike's house, indicating that she was present at the crime site. Her phone then traveled to Charles's trailer, where she arrived at approximately 11 p.m. A tech expert confirmed that Jennifer's phone automatically connected to Mike's Wi-Fi at the time of the crime, meaning she was close enough to the router. It's interesting to note that Mike's phone stopped working after 3 a.m., which probably means it was thrown into the water. Shortly after police were able to unlock Mike's phone, which Jennifer had been using, investigators thought that Charles couldn't allow that to happen and that Mike's decision might have been the catalyst for the crime. They also looked at Jennifer's messages with Charles, and although the threats didn't seem to bother him much, Jennifer reacted violently. They recovered messages in which Mike implied that he was going to call the FBI to have Charles sent back to prison. When police obtained access to Jennifer's social media, the story became even more muddled. Immediately after Mike's death, she began messaging her friends and acquaintances, but her accounts didn't add up. For one group, she claimed her ex-boyfriend had been brutally murdered, while for another, she claimed he had committed suicide. For a third group, she insisted that she hadn't spoken to him in a long time and was unaware of the tragedy. This inconsistency only made the investigators' suspicions grow stronger because it became evident that Jennifer was attempting to conceal the truth. Charles, surprisingly, he confessed that he had nothing to do with Mike's death and blamed Jennifer for everything. According to Charles, she came home that night and admitted there had been a fight between her and Mike. Allegedly, Mike came out with a gun and tried to threaten her, but she grabbed the gun in self-defense. The gun accidentally went off, hitting Mike in the face. Jennifer panicked and ran out of the house without checking if he was still alive. The next day, Jennifer decided to go back to make sure Mike was really dead. However, Charles didn't want to take any chances and asked his friend Jerry to drive her to the scene. Jerry agreed, not knowing what was really going on. When they arrived at the house, Jerry noticed that Jennifer didn't even check if Mike was breathing. Instead, she started gathering his belongings, his watch, laptop, and phone. She destroyed the evidence by throwing Mike's phone into the river, then returned to Charles's place. Later, Jerry told the police about this trip, and his statement became key evidence in the case. As the investigation progressed, the evidence started to come together. DNA from Jennifer was found on Mike's pockets, confirming she was at the crime scene, but Charles wasn't completely off the hook either. He told the police that he couldn't have been involved in the crime because he had recently been in a serious accident and was confined to a wheelchair. Investigators checked his story and confirmed it was true. Although Charles was physically unable to attend due to his injuries, Jennifer Morris was charged with first-degree murder, robbery, and evidence destruction on September 29, 2017. Jerry became the key witness at the trial, confirming that he helped Jennifer return to the crime scene and saw her trying to cover her tracks. Despite knowing about the crime, Jerry was not charged because of his testimony. The trial was scheduled for January 2019, and prosecutors presented strong evidence that Jennifer was willing to do anything for money and a comfortable life. She knew Mike was planning to cut off her financial support, and she stood to lose all the perks he provided. Mike's threats to go to the FBI and get Charles locked up again were the last straw for Jennifer. Despite melting down the murder weapon and failing to report the incident immediately, Charles also evaded charges by working with the police. Jennifer's defense team attempted to argue that she was incapable of committing such a heinous crime because she had no history of violence or aggression. Jennifer even testified that when she went to Mike's house to get her belongings, he attacked her with a gun. She said they battled and the revolver unintentionally went off, but the self-defense defense was rejected. There were no indications of a struggle in the house, and forensic experts demonstrated that the shot was fired at close range and directly into Mike's face, proving it was an execution rather than an accident. On February 1st, 2019, the jury returned their verdict. The sentencing was the last straw for Mike's already fractured family. In the courtroom, his son Patrick stated that the verdict wouldn't bring back the father he lost both physically and emotionally long before the crime while he was still alive. Jennifer Morris was found guilty on all counts of murder, theft, and destruction of evidence. Her fate was sealed at life in prison without the possibility of parole. Throughout the trial, she remained composed and showed no signs of regret or remorse. A major rift in their family resulted from Mike's separation from his son and daughter due to his fascination with Jennifer. Patrick frequently underlined that Jennifer, more than anyone else, had ruined his life by stealing his father from him and breaking the familial ties that may have been restored had not occurred. After the sentencing, Mike's family hoped that despite everything, they could find some solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. This tragedy demonstrates how easily deception and manipulation can destroy a person's life, regardless of how successful or wise they may be. In the end, Mike paid the ultimate price for his blind love and trust. Thank you for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. There are many shocking stories coming up.